In life, we occasionally experience dilemmas. Maybe that's too simplistic. Life itself is a great big dilemma, isn't it? A true dilemma is not something simple like which color shirt to wear or when to interject when someone is speaking. A true dilemma is a crisis of virtue or morality that requires action to resolve. These tests to our free will occur infrequently, but often recur in our lives. Imagine you are offered a well-paying job at the kitten-killing factory. The offer gives you full benefits and high wages, but you personally dislike the killing of kittens. This is a true dilemma that introduces contradiction into your life. On the one hand, killing kittens is nearly impossible to justify, but on the other hand, if you've been struggling on the job market for years, you may be reluctant to pass up the chance. After the choice is made one way or the other, after the fact, you are likely to construct a rationale for why you made that choice. If you choose to take the job, you could say that you prefer to care for yourself and your family, and the kitten killing really isn't that bad, it's done in a humane way. And if you choose not to take the job, you could say that you were appalled and offended by their offer, but you may still feel regret, seeing your bank account stretch thin month after month. And it's not like you're doing anything to stop the kitten killing. The decisions we make are often justified in this way. A practical decision is made in the moment and then must be constantly reinforced post hoc through the rest of our lives. It is a rare person who is willing to discard the cognitive dissonance entirely. The kitten-killing factory is only one example, but in your own life there have certainly been decisions that have been made that are less clear-cut, morally speaking. In the writing of Soren Kierkegaard, one such decision is whether or not to believe in God. As he said, life can only be understood backward. Kierkegaard outlines a distinction between rationality and faith, and asserts that the two cannot overlap. According to him, the knight of faith believes by virtue of the absurd. Kierkegaard, seeing the purposeless rationales we all employ, believes we must not agonize over choices and instead choose a leap of faith. This leap of faith is characterized in later writings as the criterionless choice by writers like Alasdair MacIntyre. In the book Either Or, Kierkegaard gives the reader a choice between the life of the aesthetic or the ethic, the aesthete choosing immediate pleasure and gratification, and the ethicist choosing community and commitment. To Kierkegaard, the choice he prefers is the ethical life, and while he is critical of the aesthetic life, he does not outright disparage it. What is most important to him is that one chooses, and chooses using faith, not reason. A quote from Either Or. "The great thing is not to be this or that, but to be one's self." The idea of the true dilemma plays out in microcosm in video games. Often in the mid-2010s, games would give players simplistic moral choices as a theme. Mass Effect, Undertale, Fallout 3, Infamous, Fable, and Overlord are only a few examples of games from this era where player choice contributes to a larger moral system and dictates the ending the player achieves after completing the game. These miniature dilemmas include things like a choice between killing a comrade for gains, gaining a resource for doing something evil, or saving a character at expense to the player. These games were sometimes critiqued for the simplistic way they treated choice, but at the same time they are a fascinating insight into the idea of morality. They ask the question, in a situation where there are no real stakes, how do people morally act? The 2026 pilot Gameoverse is a similar examination of this idea of morality in games, taken to a different extreme. In the pilot, the protagonist Kit is the main character of an unnamed video game of which the climax is a showdown with her doppelganger. When she defeats this doppelganger, she not only wins the game, but defeats an individual who was presumably terrorizing her friends and family for some time. Even so, upon the defeat of her villain, the game world she calls home is obliterated for reasons that are entirely unclear. In a Kierkegaardian sense, Kit is experiencing the regret of choice. She made a choice to defeat her enemy, and the choice had unintended consequences she had no way of identifying. After her world is destroyed, she is saved by a mysterious individual named Dusk, who employs her in an organization named Farcade, which works to prevent worlds from being destroyed in the same manner Kit's world did, by preventing main characters from defeating final bosses. This puts Kit in a situation where she has to actively aid the antagonists of these games fighting against the protagonists. This puts her at odds with an organization called Syntax, which works to do the opposite, to destroy worlds intentionally to harvest the float, an as yet unexplained form of energy that comes out of planets destroyed by clearing the game world. With the power of float, the leader of Syntax, Warwick, claims that with enough float they can change the rules of the Gameoverse, which he calls unfair. Both teams, Farcade and Syntax, have comprehensible motives. One seeks to aid villains to prevent destruction, and one seeks to aid heroes to ensure destruction. Both are trying to fight against the horror of worlds being obliterated in their own way, and neither team knows for certain if they are right or wrong. In short, both organizations are devoted to one of two criterionless choices. Given different circumstances, it's entirely possible that Kit could have become a Syntax agent in order to stop the destruction of planets. Kit agonizes over her own choices, blaming herself for the destruction of her homeworld, and this is not without merit. Her actions did, in fact, lead directly to the destruction of a planet. But at the same time, there was no possible way she could have known this. She did not have access to the criteria of the choice. In real life, there are innumerable choices just like this. Choices that have unintended consequences. Choices that we cannot understand the criteria for. Almost every decision can be only vindicated later when it brings us some kind of windfall. To Kierkegaard, the answer of the criterionless choice is to have faith in God, to place faith in something outside the self, to trust something greater, but he never claims any form of certainty in his decision. The leap of faith is not a leap of reason. So how does Kit decide what to do? How can she live a life without regrets? And how can we do the same? What's up? I'm the McLovin of funk, the bard of the jams and your number one hunk. I'm here cooking tracks on a hand-me-down blender, but my work's got bars like a 5-star vendor. Click the cursor, support the artist. Every little boost keeps the whole thing started. From my notebook to your ears, I'm topping the charts if you keep my engine alive with your digital hearts. The Patreon page is my backstage pass, sermons and sneak peeks, freestyling like jazz, and Bandcamp is where the sound compounds. Underground frequencies are heavily profound. No corporation, I'm my own sponsor. No bullshit email autoresponder. So if you fuck with my strange wordplay, give me some dollars to help me keep the wolves away. Here they come. Here's the wolves. They're coming for me. Kit's friend, the Learnosaurus gobbles. The Learnosaurus gobbles rightfully sees that Kit has done nothing wrong. To this end, he employs a cliché. You did what you thought was right. This idea of belief in morality goes as far back as Aristotle's phronesis, or practical wisdom. Later existentialists like Kant and Sartre emphasize this idea further, but Kierkegaard is the champion of this ethic. It is ironic that a Christian such as Kierkegaard was so subjective in this regard, but the central moral idea of all of these thinkers is the idea of commitment. In short, it does not matter at all the results of a choice. A dilemma can only be solved if you commit to one choice or the other. Critically, however, this affirmation in the commitment to a choice includes its results. The thinkers mentioned, especially Kant, would not accept "I believed what I did was right" as an excuse to evade consequence. The consequences of an action must be included in the commitment to it. This is why Gobbles' reassurance works, not because being ignorant exonerates Kit, but because Kit's actions were in line with her own convictions. Not to be hyperbolic here, but Kit could reasonably be tried for war crimes, couldn't she? As I said, her actions led to the destruction of an entire planet. "I didn't know that would happen" is hardly an acceptable excuse. In most legal codes, ignorance of the law is no excuse for breaking it. If Kit were on trial for her crime, she would have no defense whatsoever, except to change her conviction from mass murder to mass manslaughter. And yet instinctively, we understand that Kit has done nothing wrong in the moral sense. Why? Because we agree with and comprehend her intentions and rationale. But critically, the same is true for the syntax. Warwick, though he is imposing and villainous, is operating based on a rationale that is also comprehensible, and his destruction of the Flippers the Super Dolphin... fuck it. We're going all in. His destruction of the Flippers the Super Dolphin world is as justified as Kit's aims are. If the ends justify the means, and his actions will lead to being able to change the rules like he says of the Gameoverse, he would be an uncomplicated hero. In this way, Kit and Warwick are acting out of their own virtues, and those virtues lead them to conflict. The point of Gameoverse is more sophisticated than the faux moral systems in the 2010 gaming milieu. It is to depict a moral struggle not as good or evil, but through two groups acting out the virtues they personally hold. Kit and Warwick are in contest not because one is good and one is evil. They're in contest because they have virtues and drives that they are trying to enact in the real world. In this way, virtue and ethics has almost nothing to do with morality at all. They're completely divorced. The only ethical and virtuous act that is possible is to act with conviction and achieve the goals you set out to do. Plato once said, "Justice is the interest of the stronger." This has been later phrased, "Might makes right." Usually the idea that might makes right is said by those who are wicked and powerful who wish to justify their actions. But this phrase has another meaning too. Might makes right means that to impose any kind of morality on the world, one must be mighty. The meek do not in fact inherit the earth. No protagonist in any story overcomes their enemy by being weaker than them. The hero must advocate for themselves and overcome the antagonist through the only language the world accepts: power. If the mighty are oppressing you, you must defeat them, not in some hypothetical public arena of discourse, but by force. Is what Kit is doing right or wrong? It is irrelevant. Kit is doing what she believes is right, and she is going to impose that onto the world with her own power, and she is going to accept the consequences and keep attempting to build a world she would like to live in. Well, probably. It's only the pilot. So, this answers the titular question. How do we decide what to do? The answer is that through reason or faith, we choose what to do and commit to it with the full conviction to accept any negative consequences. The only virtue that remains is conviction and strength. Which is fine and dandy, but that leaves a question. Kit and Warwick are at the end of the day fighting the same enemy, the system. So why does the system suck? Funk McLovin, this is the 8th time you've brought Gnosticism to show and tell this week. I said at the beginning that life is a dilemma. The dilemmas we face in life are nothing compared to the ones in Gameoverse. As of now, we're only discussing the pilot episode, so there are many ambiguities in the setting, like who is Dusk? What is the Gameoverse? How are the game worlds made? What is Float? And how can I get my hands on that instant wardrobe technology they have? And what's Misinformation's telephone number? Whatever the ambiguity, we can all agree. This world sucks ass. It's set up in an incredibly cruel way. Once you finish the game, the world is destroyed. Game over. Gameoverse? Oh! Completing the story as it exists, in and of itself, is the worst possible thing you can do. This leaves a few options. Either live in a constant state of misery without defeating the game's antagonist, or solve the contradiction and be obliterated. It's almost as if the entire system is set up to torture whoever is inside. At the same time, this is literally speaking how games in real life are played. After you finish the game, you're done with it. You turn off the console, the world ends. It's Wreck-It Ralph rules, but on the scale of a personal gaming console instead of an arcade. A quote from On the Origin of the World. The rulers created a man according to their own image, and they placed him in paradise, but it was a prison. The worlds in Gameoverse are idyllic and beautiful. Flappers lives in an undersea paradise that would put SpongeBob to shame. Kit comes from a beautiful steampunk utopia. Everything in these worlds is beautiful, just like our world is. But at the same time, This beauty hides the chaos and pain of it all, the terrifying destruction that can happen on the slightest whim. A quote from the Apocryphon of John. "The world is a place of deficiency, and it came into being through a mistake." Many people who are only somewhat familiar with Gnosticism mistake Gnostics as believing the world is evil or bad. This is not true. For example, in the Matrix is more beautiful and free than the real world, which is a hollowed-out Earth long obliterated by robots. In our real world, called the cosmos or the Kenoma, nature can just be as wondrous as it can be destructive. The Gnostic perspective is that this beauty hides the destruction and distracts us from something more beautiful and deep. Kit and Warwick are both, at the end of the day, fighting the same enemy, the world itself. Warwick wants to change the rules, and Kit believes in the ethos of the Farcade, to prevent destruction by avoiding the game's resolution. Both of these individuals have identical, fundamental issues with the world at large. It sucks. In real life, many political ideologies exist to combat the same central problems. For example, in the 2024 election, voters for Kamala Harris and Donald Trump both cited the failing economy for voting for their respective candidates. The central problem is the same. Poor people, the hoi polloi, do not have access to enough resources, and yet there are a great variety of culture war issues of no consequences that are erected as distractions to get people to ignore the ruling class that is creating the problems in the first place. Worrying about trans athletes, banning abortion, blaming migrants, blaming birth rates, all of these scapegoats for the very simple and plain fact that the big guy is fucking the little guy. In Gnosticism, these problems are not just issues with the system that are inherent to it. Someone made the world this way on purpose, Yaldabaoth the Demiurge. In real life, someone made society the way it is, rich dipshits who want to play with your life like a video game. The real world has Yaldabaoths. Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Jeffrey Epstein. I don't need to tell you their names. You've been hearing them nonstop for the last couple years. In Gameoverse, I wouldn't be shocked to find the rug pulled out in the same way. Kit and Warwick are on the same tide in the end. They're against the destruction of planets, against genocide, against destruction and death. They are in a fight with the system itself. I said earlier that one must have conviction, but conviction is pointless unless it is directed. Otherwise, conviction will inevitably lead to obliteration. Kit, acting with conviction alone, destroyed her planet. It is only after learning the rules of the Gameoverse that she is able to change her focus and begin to construct a new conviction. In the real world, we have to do the same. We have to zoom out and comprehend the larger and most basic forces at play. We have to have a Gnostic understanding of these things. Otherwise, conviction, no matter how righteous and moral, is going to be worthless. From the Gospel of Thomas, Logion 5. Recognize what is in your sight, and that which is hidden will become plain to you. Recognizing what is in your sight is easier said than done. A rigorous and constant self-critique must be employed. It is not enough for Kit to have conviction. She must also constantly reassess her goals themselves without losing that core conviction. In life, we must do the same. In a sense, we are all right now working for the kitten-killing factory I brought up before. We are all part of a greater system that is contributing to death and destruction. As the Diddy Bops once said, you're always hurting something just by living on the earth. Okay, I don't usually do this, but I want to summarize this video into 3 absolutely basic steps. Step 1. Make the criterionless choice. Make a decision to fight for what you believe in and use your power to achieve your goals. Step 2. Accept the consequences of your choices. Do not turn away from them. Try to cope with them or ignore them, or you will repeat them. Detach emotion from them and face your consequences. Step 3. Reassess your path based on what mistakes you have made and reaffirm your choices and your convictions in them. I suppose in its most basic sense, I believe there is no wrong decision if you are being honest with yourself. I've told a lot of lies in my life, but I have tried my absolute hardest not to lie to the most important person in my life, myself. Deluding others is fine if you're into that sort of thing, but the worst sin you can commit is to delude yourself. My girlfriend and I were joking that neither one is afflicted with imposter syndrome. That feeling that you've got something that you don't deserve. The reason we don't feel this way is both of us understand deep down that no one deserves anything. Dispensing with the idea of like deserving things absolves the betrayal and envy when you don't get what you want, and also absolves this sort of enervation and ennui that comes from reaching beyond your means. Take opportunities, is what I'm saying. Have conviction. Commit to things. Commit to choices. There is no choice you can make that is right or wrong. You have to accept that. Every decision contains right and wrong in equal measure. I really hate to give it to Aleister Crowley, but in this case he was right when he said, "The whole of the law is, do as thou wilt." Now, if you're interested in more of my Gnostic stuff, more explicitly, there's a great video I have out now about the myth of the demiurge, which I talked about briefly in this video. So if you're interested in that, click the link, it's on the screen, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and tickle my balls. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and tickle my balls. Get your finger under there and just go ahead and tickle them. Fucking do it all.